All right, talking about comparing and specifically ordering decimals in this one. Using the same process as comparing, but they'll just be more than two numbers. So the problem we could think about. Demetrius walks a different trail each week. He starts with the shortest trail and ends with the longest trail. In what order does Demetrius hike the trails? Okay, so if we have these three numbers, how can we figure out them shortest to longest? One thing I'll point out is make sure you know if they're asking for smallest to biggest or biggest to smallest. Greatest to least, least to greatest. Which way they are asking. That's important. So, one strategy is to use a place value chart. So go ahead, write that in your notes. Place value chart. Now again, you might not have a place value chart, so you could always just write them vertically. But I will show you how to use a place value chart, and then you could apply the same strategy just without the chart or with lined paper, like I said last time. So if we write them in the chart, then we can see, okay, just like before, we start on the left side, and then we can see 1, 1, 0. Oh, the 0 is less than the 1s, so 0 and 9/10 is the shortest. Then I think it helps to like cross that one out to then focus on the other ones. Because then I can say 0 and 0, or 1 and 1, that's the same. 2 and 4. Okay, the 4 is bigger, the 2 is smaller. So we have this is the smallest, then this one, then this one. Okay, even though 25 might look like it's bigger than 4, remember that 4 is 4/10, or we could say 40/100ths, and 40/100ths is bigger than 25/100ths. I think like 40 cents is more than 25 cents. So we got, yep, we did the next shortest. So the main thing is just to stay organized and be able to say, okay, I used that one. Now I'm just comparing these other ones. So we established 1 and 25/100ths is less than 1 and 4/10. So he would start with the Panther Path, then he would go to the Alligator Trail, then the Orange Blossom Overlook. Another way to compare is to use a number line. So go ahead and write that in your notes. Use a number line. Now you don't always have a number line, so you could either make one or just use a different strategy. But if you're given one especially, it can be helpful, or making your own. So if we say we had this number line down here, where would I put the numbers on there? Well, 0.9. If this is 0.8, this one would be 0.9. 1 and 25/100ths. 25 is halfway between 2 and this one. Remember, I could add zeros if I wanted to, so 20 and 40. This one would be 30, so 25 would go right there. And then the other one would be right on that 1.4. So that can help me then say, oh, least to greatest, I have the order right here. Or if they ask greatest to least, then the reverse. So that's how a number line can be helpful. All right. Just make sure I didn't miss anything before we do some examples. So just like we compare whole numbers, we can also compare decimals. It just so happens that we make sure we line up our decimals. And sometimes one is shorter than another, but the shorter doesn't necessarily mean smaller like it does with whole numbers. That's the thing we have to remember. One thing I do want you to write in your notes, I'm just going to use this space down here. So a tip for me is to make the numbers, okay, you have that written down, make the numbers, what I want you to write is the same length, and we do that by adding zeros at the end. Then, okay, line them up vertically. That I have found, if you're stuck, is a great way. It also helps us see like how big they are. I'm sorry, that's an R, vertically. Lost my train of thought. Because we can't always just look at them. Sometimes that can be like, that can throw us off. Because again, we're used to shorter being smaller, but sometimes a shorter decimal is bigger than a longer decimal. So do be careful if you're sort of using the, I'm just going to look at them and not write them down, which I know 5th graders like to do. So just be careful. If you didn't get that, just go back and write it down. So if we had these 3 decimals, I could use a number line. I do want to show you what I was just talking about. So I'm going to line them up. Okay, I'm going to add that 0 again because now they're all hundredths. So I can say, okay, they all have 1 whole. So I'm not going to, I can't use that to help me. 6, 5, and 7. Well, I know the 5 is the smallest. So this one is the smallest. Then I would have 60. Then I would have 73. Now it depends on what they asked me to do, right? If they said write them from greatest to least, I would start with this one, and then that, and that. If they said least to greatest, then I would do it in the reverse. Just be careful that you don't look at them and say, oh, that one's the shortest, it must be the smallest, because it's not. So it's 6/10, but this one is only 5/10. Sure, it has some hundredths, but hundredths are smaller than tenths, so they don't count for as much. If you need to see a picture of that, I can get out some blocks or draw you a picture if you need that visual. Okay? Let's do some practice. Your favorite thing, I'm sure. But no, hopefully it helps you to have some like, let me try it, she can explain it before you do it totally by yourself. I'm not necessarily going to use the number lines. You don't always have a number line to use. So I can show you where they are, but then I'll also use a different strategy that you'll have more access to. Okay, so if I have these, I know I'm counting by tenths. So I know 0.4 would go 1, 2, 3, 4 right there. But then I have to think, okay, that's 1/100th. If this is 1 and these are tenths, 1/100th is actually way over there. 11 is like just past there, which just is sometimes hard to visualize. Yes, we need to practice putting them on number lines, but for now, if I line them up and then, okay, I like to make them the same length. I think it just helps visualize. I can say, okay, this is the least, then that one, then that one. All right, this one, go ahead and put these 3, choose the one that has those in order. We'll say from least to greatest on this one. All right, well, I have 9/10, 9/100 versus 19/100. If it helps, add that 0, because then I'm like, oh, 90/100 versus 9 versus 19. I know that 9 is the smallest, then 19, then 90. Or I can say, oh, look, 9, 0, 1. 0 is the smallest, then 1, then 9. Whether you go place by place or sort of look at them as a whole big number, either way, we'll compare them correctly. All right, go ahead and pick this one. This one we'll do greatest to least. All right, if I write them vertically, 39/100, 6/10, 15/100. If I want, I can add a 0 there. So then I see, oh, 60 is bigger than 15 and 39. So 6 is the biggest. Then I have 39 hundredths. Then I have 15 hundredths. Or 3, 6, 1 will also help me put them in order. Let's look at this one, how to put them on a number line. Just a reminder, like, this is 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, etc. Or I could think of it as 10, 20, 30, 40, etc. This being 1.00. And then I'm like, oh, 39 is going to go right in between 30 and 40. Or not right in between, almost at 40. 6/10 is going to go all the way, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's right on the line. And then 15 is going to go down here. So that can also help me put them in order. If you need help, let us know. Good luck.